The Force is light and full of shadows.
Before we dive in, check the link in the description if you want exclusive Timelines members-only videos you won't find on YouTube, all on our Patreon. The throne room is burning. Not metaphorically. Not the slow burn of political machination or the creeping rot of a philosophy turned against itself. The room is burning. Superheated air. The smell of ozone and scorched durasteel. A floor slick with condensed lightning discharge. Palpatine stands above him, arms outstretched, and the blue-white arcs are tearing through him cell by cell. And Vader cannot move because his legs are already gone, his armor fused in places to the floor, and the only thing left that works is one arm. One arm. He watches Luke's face through failing photoreceptors. The boy is screaming something. The word is father. He knows this. He has always known this. He closes that hand around Palpatine's ankle. Then there is nothing. No pain. No suit. No respirator cycling its mechanical rhythm into his chest, like a metronome marking off the seconds of a diminished life. Just breath. Real breath. Unfiltered, warm, slightly stale, the smell of womp rat stew from the previous night still hanging in the close air of a very small room. His chest rises. Falls. Rises again. Each breath a small, involuntary miracle. The silence where the respirator used to be is the loudest thing he has ever heard. He lies still for 30 seconds, maybe 40, staring at a ceiling he recognizes before he remembers why he recognizes it. Mud brick construction. A hairline crack running diagonally from the ventilation grate to the corner. A water stain shaped like the continent of Alderaan. He used to think that as a child. Though he didn't know then what Alderaan looked like. He knows now. He also knows it no longer exists. Vader's mind processes information the way it always has, in rapid, layered assessments, tactical and cold. This is Mos Espa, the slave quarter. His mother's quarter, subdivided, he is in his own sleeping space, a curtained alcove 2 meters by 1.5. A sleeping pad worn thin at the center, a rough shelf holding 3 objects he made himself from salvaged parts. He is 9 years old. He sits up, looks at his hands. Small, both of them. 10 fingers. Skin the pale brown of a child who works more in the shop than in the sun. No scar on the right palm, he got that at 11, a power coupling that discharged at the wrong angle. The scar isn't there because that hasn't happened yet. He closes both hands into fists. Opens them. The fingers respond with a dexterity the suit never allowed. He can feel the sleeping pad under his palms. He can feel the specific texture of it, the weave of the fabric, the slight give of the film material, the warmth his body has left in the impression of where he slept. He could not feel anything through those gloves, not for 23 years. He doesn't allow himself to feel what that means. Not yet. That door stays closed. 32 BB. His mind supplies. The relevant calculation assembles itself automatically. The Trade Federation's blockade of Naboo is in progress or imminent. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi will arrive on this planet inside of weeks, possibly days. He does not know the exact date. He knows the shape of what is coming. He also knows, with the flat certainty of a man reviewing a battle he already lost, exactly how the old version of this story ends. He gets up. His mother's breathing is audible through the partition, the slow, even rhythm of someone still asleep, still safe. He stands in the doorway between the 2 spaces and listens to it for longer than is strictly necessary. Shmi Skywalker sleeps on her side, one hand tucked under her cheek, the lines of her face softer in unconsciousness than they ever quite are during the day. He last saw her on Tatooine when he was 19. By the time he found her, in a Tuscan camp at the edge of the Dune Sea, her wrists bound above her head, her face already leaving, she was already beyond reaching. He turns away. He pulls on his boots, his work tunic, the light outer wrap he wore habitually against the pre-dawn chill of Tatooine nights. Moves through the small space without making noise, muscle memory and the Vader-trained instinct for silence combining in a child's body that doesn't yet have either one. He goes outside. 2 moons are still up, the larger one low and reddish near the western horizon, the smaller pale and high, both washing the alley in a light that is neither day nor dark. The Mos Espa slave quarter at this hour is nearly silent, distant machinery somewhere, the occasional bark of a sleeping creature. The wind off the dune sea carrying its perpetual low note, dry and mineral and old. He stands in the alley behind the quarter and breathes that air for a moment. There is no part of Tatooine that smells good. He has never found anyone who would argue otherwise. But there is a particular quality to the pre-dawn desert air, stripped of the day's heat, carrying the cold dark clarity of deep space down to ground level, that is simply honest in a way most of the galaxy is not. The Force moves here. He can feel it the way he could always feel it, not as the hobbled, damaged signal that leaked through the suit's life support interference, but cleanly, fully, the way it felt before Mustafar. The desert is alive with it in the way all old, still places are alive with it. Something sleeps under this sand that is not geological. He notices that sensation and files it. He walks for 3 hours. He doesn't plan to. He intends to walk to the edge of the quarter, orient himself, return, but the pull doesn't diminish with distance. It intensifies, slowly, at first, in increments too small to be certain of, and then unmistakably. A directional gradient in the Force, rising from below and from the west, from the direction of the deep dune sea. By the time he registers that he has covered roughly 12 kilometers into the wastes, the Mos Espa cluster lights are a thin amber line behind him. And the thing pulling at him from below is no longer subtle. He stops. Looks at the ground. Sand over rock. Rock over older rock. He pushes his senses down through the strata the way Vader learned to push them through starship bulkheads, through castle walls, through the armored silence of besieged planets. The rock here is not natural formation, or rather, it is now. After sufficient geological time, but beneath the resettled layers and the millennia of dune migration there is structure. The ghost of angles. The resonance of deliberate construction. Old. Older than the Republic. Older than the Sith as he knew them. He crouches, presses one small hand flat against the sand. The Force does not speak in words. It never has. But if he were to translate what comes back through that contact into language, it would be something close to found you. Or, perhaps, finally. He doesn't move for a long moment. The cold of the desert before dawn settles around him, and the 2 moons hang overhead, and somewhere deep beneath his hand, behind Rakatan's stone and 4,000 years of silence, something waits. He is 9 years old. He weighs 32 kilograms. His mother does not know he left. He has no tools, no lightsaber, no transport back. He also has the tactical mind of a Sith Lord who commanded Imperial fleets, the Force sensitivity of the highest recorded midichlorian count in galactic history, and the specific, precise knowledge of exactly what Palpatine will do to this galaxy, if nothing changes. He marks the location in his memory with the accuracy of a man who navigated by Starfield for 2 decades. Then he turns and walks back toward Mos Espa, into the pre-dawn wind, already calculating. He will need tools. He will need time. He will need to be back before his mother wakes. The vault has waited 4,000 years. It can wait 3 more days. He returns on the 3rd morning. The tools fit poorly in a child's hands. A vibro pick borrowed from a hardware vendor near the quarter's south edge, under the pretense of helping with a foundation repair. A handheld geological scanner lifted carefully from Watto's parts shelf and returned before the Toydarian noticed its absence. A coil of Durasteel cable thin enough to fit in a satchel. He wears his heaviest work wrap against the pre-dawn cold. He carries 2 water canisters and nothing else. The walk takes 2 hours and 40 minutes. He doesn't rush. Rushing in the dune sea before sunrise is how children died on Tatooine. A twisted ankle, a wrong turn, a thermal vent hidden under a skin of cooled sand. He sets a pace he can sustain, navigates by the stars with the unconscious precision of a man who learned to read hyperspace routes at 15, and arrives at the marked location 11 minutes before the first pale line of dawn touches the eastern horizon. He crouches, presses the scanner against the surface. The readout confirms what the Force already told him. Beneath 3 meters of compressed sand and natural rock fall, there is a chamber. roughly 8 meters by 12. Walls of a material the scanner cannot identify precisely. Density readings inconsistent with any standard durasteel alloy. Composition markers suggesting an absence of recognizable metallic signatures, which means either the scanner is malfunctioning or the material itself is doing something active to resist analysis. Rakatan construction. He puts the scanner away. The entrance is not where logic would place it. He spends 40 minutes working the perimeter, a 9-year-old boy in the empty desert, pressing his hands methodically against sand and stone in a grid pattern, eyes closed, reaching down through the geological strata with senses that have nothing to do with the vibro pick hanging from his belt. The Rakatan builders did not design for comfort or obvious access. They designed for permanence, for secrecy, for the specific deterrence of anyone who was not force-sensitive enough to find what they were looking for. He finds it on the western face of a low rock formation that looks, from any practical vantage, like an unremarkable desert shelf. One stone block, roughly half a meter square, slightly smoother than its neighbors. Not smooth enough to notice by eye, smooth enough to notice by touch, the specific smoothness of a surface that has been shaped rather than worn. He presses both palms flat against it. The force moves through the stone like current through a circuit. Something on the other side responds. A pressure, a click he feels more than hears, a vibration traveling up through his palms and into his forearms. The block does not open. It recedes, sliding inward and then sideways on a mechanism that has not moved in millennia, grinding with the specific complaint of stone that has been still too long. Beyond it, darkness, stale air rolling out in a slow exhalation, warm and mineral and enclosed. The smell of something that has not been disturbed for a very long time. He clips the cable to the rock formation, takes the vibro pick in his right hand, and goes in. The passage slopes downward at roughly 15 degrees. The walls are the same unidentifiable alloy the scanner flagged, dark, almost matte, absorbing the light from his hand lamp rather than reflecting it, so the beam illuminates a small sphere directly ahead and leaves everything behind him in absolute black. The floor is clear of debris, which tells him the Rakatan drainage engineering still functions. 4,000 years of desert above, and the floor is dry. He walks for perhaps 30 meters before the passage opens. The chamber is larger than the scanner suggested. The readout said 8 by 12. The actual space is closer to 10 by 16, the discrepancy likely because the walls themselves have mass the scanner couldn't distinguish from surrounding rock. The ceiling arches overhead in a shallow vault, a structural choice that speaks to builders who understood load distribution. This ceiling has held up 3 meters of Tatooine desert for 4,000 years and shows no sign of strain. He stands in the entrance and lets his eyes adjust. The chamber is not empty. Along the left wall, weapons racks, mostly bare, the mounts corroded into the wall material, the weapons themselves gone, taken or decayed, or moved during whatever sequence of events brought this vault to its current state. One rack holds the corroded ghost of what might have been a vibroblade. He doesn't touch it. Along the right wall, storage containers of the same dark alloy, stacked in a configuration that suggests deliberate arrangement rather than hasty concealment. Some are sealed. He notes them and moves on. The center of the chamber is where his attention goes, where it had to go. A raised platform, roughly circular, approximately 1 meter in diameter, 4 support pillars in a square formation, each engraved with script he recognizes, Old Galactic Standard blended with older characters that predate it, the hybrid written form of the late Old Republic period, 4,000 years back. Rakatan structural framing. But the script is not Rakatan. Whoever left this vault used the Rakatan bones and furnished it in their own language. On the platform, in a mount that holds it at a slight upward angle, exactly as a craftsman would display a thing of value, a lightsaber hilt. He crosses the chamber without hurrying. His footsteps are the only sound. He stops at the platform's edge and looks at the hilt without touching it. It is not what he expected, and he expected something significant. The design is old in a way that reads immediately even to an untrained eye. The construction philosophy fundamentally different from the clean geometric machining of Republic-era sabers. This hilt was built by hand in a way that left evidence of the hand. The grip is wrapped in a material he cannot immediately identify. Not leather, not synth leather, something darker and more worn, pressed into the metal channels by decades of use, rather than installed for aesthetics. The emitter is asymmetric by a degree or two, one side slightly wider than the other. Not an error but a deliberate accommodation to a specific grip angle. A southpaw, he files that. The hilt is approximately 28 centimeters, designed for a single hand but balanced for two. The activator is not where a modern saber would put it. It sits 11 centimeters from the pommel rather than the standard 8, another accommodation. Another sign of a weapon fitted to a specific person rather than built to specification. And at the base of the pommel, engraved in the same hybrid script as the platform pillars, one word. He reads it. Revan. He stands very still. In the Vader memory he cannot discard, Palpatine's voice rises. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural, and he closes that particular door with the practiced ease of a man who has been closing it for 23 years. He reaches out, picks up the hilt. The activation comes without a decision. His thumb finds the activator plate before he consciously chooses to engage it. The kind of muscle memory that runs below cognition, built into every Force-sensitive who has carried a lightsaber long enough. The blade ignites. He has held thousands of weapons. This one is different. The blade is violet, not the clean, stable violet he had seen in Mace Windu's saber once from across a council chamber. This is a violet that has weight to it. Depth, a darkness threaded through the core that keeps it from being purely light, and a brightness at the edge that keeps it from being purely dark. At the outer edge, where the plasma field interacts with the Tatooine air, there is a faint reddish flicker, not the red of a Sith crystal, not corruption, but the specific color of something that has walked very close to the dark side and returned, and carries the memory of that proximity in every photon it emits. It doesn't hum. It murmurs. He holds it in his right hand. Adjusts his grip to the asymmetric emitter housing. Shifts the activator position against his thumb. Makes 3 micro-adjustments in 4 seconds, his body recalibrating to a weapon that was built for different hands than his current ones. Then he takes a basic guard position in the center of the chamber, Shi-Cho, first form, the foundation, and holds it. The violet light fills the vault. On the walls, on the engraved pillars, on the empty weapons racks and the sealed storage containers, the color moves and breathes. Ancient stone made new by a blade that has no business working after 4 millennia in the dark. He doesn't run a form. He doesn't drill. He simply stands in the guard position and breathes. The Force is very present here. He thinks, this changes everything. Then, more precisely, this is how it was always going to change. He deactivates the blade, clips the hilt to his belt, where his hands already know where it is. Turns toward the sealed storage containers along the right wall. He has work to do. The desert outside is warming. In Mos Espa, Watto's shop will open in 90 minutes. He is 9 years old, and he carries a dead legend's weapon on his hip, and he is already late. Watto notices the hilt on the 4th day. Not immediately. The Toydarian's attention runs on a specific frequency. Profit, loss, mechanical components, the probability calculus of pod racing odds. A child wearing something on his belt registers below that threshold. At first, Anakin has been careful. He wears the hilt under his outer wrap during shop hours, clipped to the interior of his work belt where it sits flush against his left hip, and reads, from any practical angle, as a tool handle. On the 4th day, Watto swoops low over the parts shelf where Anakin is sorting capacitor housings, and the wrap shifts, and the pommel catches the light. Wazat? Watto's wings bring him to hover at eye level, his proboscis twitching in the direction of Anakin's hip. "Watto, you got there, boy!" Anakin sets down the capacitor housing, turns to face him. In the mind behind the 9-year-old's eyes, a calculation runs and concludes in under 2 seconds. "Found it in the wastes," he said. 3 days ago. Scrap metal. "I was going to strip it for the grip components." Watto's eyes track to the hilt. His expression is the particular squint of a man running evaluation. "Let me see." "It's broken," Anakin said. "The power cell is dead." "I already checked." The second statement is true. He drained the power cell deliberately the night before, foreseeing exactly this conversation. Watto holds out one clawed hand. Anakin unclips the hilt and passes it over. He watches Watto turn it over, tap the activator plate, nothing, as promised, weigh it in his palm, examine the pommel inscription with the squinting disinterest of a man who cannot read old galactic standard script. "Junk," Watto concluded, and handed it back. "Don't waste my shop time with junk, boy. Get back to the capacitors." Anakin clips the hilt back to his belt. "Yes, sir," he said. He returns to the capacitors. His expression does not change. The knights belong to the holocron. He found it in the third sealed container, a cube approximately 12 centimeters on each face, constructed in the same hybrid material as the vault walls, its facets carved in the geometric interlocking pattern common to Force user knowledge repositories across 3 separate historical traditions. It activated on contact, the way holocrons built for Force-sensitive access always did. Its facets glowing with a dim internal light that cycled between violet and a deep amber before settling on something between the two. The gatekeeper emerged as a figure approximately 20 centimeters tall, rendered in the same amber-violet light as the cube itself. A human male. Compact frame. A face that had been young once, and then had become something more than young. Not old. Not aged. But resolved. The face of a person who had walked through several versions of themselves and come out the other side knowing which one was real. A hood, usually raised. Twin lightsabers crossed at the hip. The gatekeeper looked at him for a long moment before speaking. "You're very young," it observed. "I'm aware," Anakin replied. "Most who find this vault are not young. Most who find this vault have already chosen a side." The gatekeeper's rendered eyes tracked across him with an evaluation that felt, despite its holographic nature, like genuine assessment. "You haven't. I've been to the other side," Anakin said carefully. "Both of them." Another pause. The gatekeeper tilted its head. "Then you know what this is." "I know who you are." The figure was quiet for a moment that stretched longer than comfortable. Outside the slave quarter's thin walls, Mos Espa settled into its late-night sounds. Distant cantina music, a dewback somewhere complaining at the heat, the hydraulic sigh of a moisture evaporator cycling. "Then ask?" The gatekeeper said. "That is what I'm here for." He asks everything. Not in one night. Over 11 nights, working in the 2-hour window between his mother's sleep and the pre-dawn hours when Tatooine's nocturnal creatures grew loudest, and the ambient noise covered the faint light leaking from under his alcove curtain. He wraps the holocron in a cloth, to dim it. He sits cross-legged on the sleeping pad with the hilt in his lap and the gatekeeper standing on the floor in front of him, and he asks. Form the Seven's underlying principles, not the techniques, not the choreography, but the why of it. The philosophical architecture beneath the aggression. The gatekeeper explains with the patience of someone who has been explaining for 4,000 years, that Juyo, as the Jedi practice it, is an incomplete expression of a form built on deliberate emotional access. Because the Jedi cannot bring themselves to complete the circuit, they allow the practitioner to touch the dark side's intensity, but not to understand it, which is like teaching someone to cross a river by explaining only one bank. Anakin listens. He asks about the balance point. The gatekeeper is precise. It is not a fixed location, not a permanent state, not an achievement. It is a practice. A daily recalibration, the way a navigator corrects for stellar drift, not once, not dramatically, but in small, constant adjustments that keep the course true. He asks about Palpatine, not by name. He describes the type. A patient, long-game manipulator working through manufactured dependency, emotional isolation, and the weaponization of fear and love simultaneously. He describes the methodology without the specific history. The gatekeeper is quiet for a moment. "I know that methodology," it said. "I was on the receiving end of it once. What broke it?" "Certainty," the gatekeeper replied. "Not certainty about the manipulator. Certainty about myself. You cannot be redirected from a destination you have actually chosen." The amber-violet light steadied. The manipulation works because the target has not yet decided what they are. Make the decision. Mean it. The leverage disappears. Anakin sits with that for a long time. The decision arrives on the 12th night, not as a revelation, but as a recognition. The way a man realizes he has been walking a road for some time before he registered that he chose to walk it. He is not Darth Vader. That man is dead on the second Death Star, and whatever mercy or justice that constitutes, it is done and complete. He is not the Anakin Skywalker who will walk into the Jedi Temple and see Palpatine's future in every smiling word. He is a third thing, currently wearing a 9-year-old's body, with a dead legend's weapon on his hip and 5 years of combined experience in both the light and the dark. He decides what to do with that. The liberation, when it comes, costs him 2 weeks of careful preparation and 1 morning's work. He does not plan it dramatically. He plans it the way he planned logistics for the 501st, methodically, accounting for variables, identifying the sequence of actions that achieves the objective with minimum exposure. The objective is simple. His mother is a slave. Simple objectives sometimes have complicated solutions. What he knows, Watto's primary financial anxiety is his gambling debt to a Rhodian broker named Kirko, who operates from a kiosk near the South Market. What he knows, that debt is currently large enough that Watto has been avoiding the South Market for 3 weeks. What he knows, that Kirko would accept a partial settlement in high-quality hyperdrive components. Because Kirko also runs a small parts resale operation and has a standing order from a Corellian freighter crew that needs a T6 motivator. Watto has a T6 motivator on the 3rd shelf of the back storeroom. It has been there for 6 months. It is not on the active inventory manifest because Watto forgot he had it. Anakin surfaces the motivator, documents it, adds it to the manifest, brings it to Watto's attention with the careful framing of a child who has noticed something useful. There's a buyer, he said, near the South Market. They'll pay full listed value. Watto's eyes sharpen, the specific sharpening of a man who sees a debt problem getting smaller. How do you know this, boy? I hear things in the shop, Anakin said. People talk while they're waiting. Both statements are true. Watto sold the motivator that afternoon for enough to clear 60% of Kirko's outstanding balance. He returned to the shop in a mood that bordered on generous. Anakin was waiting. I've been thinking about something, he said. Mama is a good mechanic. Better than me. If she wasn't contracted to you, she could do independent repair work. You'd be splitting what she earns now instead of taking all of it, but you'd have no liability costs. Watto hovered. Considered. What are you saying, boy? I'm saying there's a man near the fuel depot who buys out labor contracts. Anakin said. Pays fair. I already found out what he'd pay for Mama's contract. It's more than she'll earn you in the next 3 years combined, based on your current job volume. He placed a handwritten figure on the workbench between them. Watto looked at the figure. The figure was accurate. He had spent 4 days calculating it to make sure. Watto looked at the figure for a long time. You're a strange child, Watto said finally. I've been told that, Anakin replied. Shmi Skywalker's labor contract transferred on a Tuesday. The man near the fuel depot did not exist. The buyer was a legal instrument Anakin had assembled with the help of a Twi'lek document writer who charged 50 whoop-youpie and asked no questions. The contract transferred into a holding entity with no owner of record except the holder of a specific data chip, which Anakin pressed into his mother's hand that evening without explanation. This is yours, he said. Shmi looked at the chip, looked at him. Her eyes did what his mother's eyes always did when she was doing the calculation of whether to ask or simply accept. She accepted. She pulled him into her arms with the particular grip of a woman who has been afraid to hold things too tightly, and he pressed his face against her shoulder and breathed. And for a moment he was not a dead Sith Lord or a resurrected war commander or the heir of any legend. He was just her son. And she was free, and that was enough for right now. Outside, Tatooine's twin suns were setting. Somewhere in the Dune Sea, behind Rakatan walls, a holocron waited with 4,000 years of knowledge still to give. And somewhere in the space lanes above this dust-choked, lawless, beautiful planet, a Jedi cruiser was entering the Tattoo system with a problem that needed solving. He had perhaps a week. He intended to use all of it. He feels them before he sees them. The Force announces the presence of powerful light side users the way a pressure change announces weather, not dramatically. Not with any single identifiable sensation, but as a shift in the ambient field, a new weight in the current. He is 3 rows deep in Mos Espa's morning market, helping his mother carry groceries she can now choose herself with money she now controls, when the shift arrives. He sets down the canister he is holding, orients 2 presences. Strong, disciplined, the particular quality of Force users trained from childhood to keep their signatures contained, bright but bounded, like lamps behind frosted glass. Moving through the market from the direction of the docking pads, his mother glances at him. "Ani, I need to look at something," he said. "Stay here. I'll be back." He moves through the crowd with the unhurried precision of a man who has navigated the press of battlefields and Senate floors, and does not find a Tatooine market remotely challenging. He finds a vantage point at the corner of a moisture reclamation vendor's stall, elevated slightly on a cargo crate, sight lines clear in 3 directions. He locates them in under 30 seconds. Qui-Gon Jinn moves through a crowd the way large, calm things move through the world, not parting it by force, but by a quality of presence that makes space around him naturally. He is tall. He is unhurried. He is looking at everything with the specific attention of a man who believes any detail might matter, which is the living Force doctrine made physical. The Padawan behind him is younger, quicker-eyed, more visibly alert to threat vectors. Obi-Wan Kenobi at this point in his life is not yet the measured General Anakin served under. He is still close enough to his own training that his vigilance reads as slightly performative, the watchfulness of a young man who has learned caution and wants to demonstrate the learning. Anakin watches them from the cargo crate for approximately 90 seconds. Qui-Gon, he knows, will find him regardless. The living Force tends toward its own conclusions, and Qui-Gon's particular sensitivity to its current will bring him to this district, to this street, to the boy with the anomalous midi-chlorian count and the ancient weapon clipped under his work wrap. The mechanism is different this time. There is no pod race yet, no meeting over parts, but the Force has a shape to it that predates his interference, and Qui-Gon is the kind of man who follows that shape. So he does not hide. He climbs down from the cargo crate and crosses the market toward them. He is careful about the approach. A 9-year-old walking directly toward 2 Jedi, in a place like Mos Espa, reads as either begging or information selling, both common enough to be unremarkable. He angles his approach to bring him alongside rather than in front, falling into step near Qui-Gon's left as though headed the same direction. "You're looking for the Hutt's district office," Anakin said, without preamble or greeting. Qui-Gon looked down at him. The assessment in those eyes was immediate and genuine, not the polite half-attention adults usually gave children, but actual, focused evaluation. The Force recognition came a half-second behind it, registering on Qui-Gon's face as a slight deepening of attention. "Are we?" Qui-Gon said. Not a question. Not an agreement. A holding posture. "You came from the docking pads," Anakin said. "You're not dressed for commerce. You're not carrying trade manifests. You're not here for the racing. The Hutts control off-world communication routing on this planet, which means if you need to contact someone without going through Mos Espa's public channels, you go to Jabba's district representative. His office is 3 streets east and 1 north. You'd have found it eventually." Obi-Wan had stopped walking. He was looking at Anakin with the specific expression of a man recalibrating an assumption, the assumption being that children in Mos Espa's market did not typically provide accurate tactical analysis unprompted. Qui-Gon studied him for a moment longer. "What's your name?" "Anakin Skywalker." The name registered. Qui-Gon's Force presence shifted in a way that was subtle enough that a less experienced reader would have missed it. A small spike of recognition, not surprise exactly, but the sensation of a thing falling into place. He had clearly already felt the midi-chlorian signature and was now matching it to a face and a name. "I'm Qui-Gon Jinn," he said. "This is Obi-Wan Kenobi." "I know who you are," Anakin said. Obi-Wan's eyes narrowed. "Do you?" "I've heard the name." Jedi come through Tatooine occasionally. He meets Obi-Wan's gaze directly, which is, he is aware, slightly unusual for a slave child meeting a Jedi Padawan. He holds it without aggression and without deference. simply steady. "You're here about the Queen of Naboo." The quality of silence that followed had texture to it. Obi-Wan's hand moved, not reaching for anything, but the instinct toward the lightsaber hilt was there, checked and controlled. Qui-Gon did not move at all, which was its own kind of answer. A man who was not alarmed tended to stay still. "The situation on Naboo is not public knowledge," Qui-Gon said carefully. "No," Anakin agreed. "But the Trade Federation blockade created a spike in bacta prices 3 weeks ago that hit even the Outer Rim markets. And you're Jedi, here without announcement, which means you're moving something or someone sensitive. The Queen is the most logical variable." He paused. "I'm not a threat. I'm a mechanic who notices things." Qui-Gon looked at him for a long time. The Force moved between them with the specific quality of two people reading each other at a level below speech, and Anakin was careful, very careful, to present exactly what he intended. A child who is perceptive, who is Force-sensitive in a way that cannot be hidden, and who is not hiding anything that would cause alarm. The hilt stays inside the wrap. The Vader memories stay behind every wall he has. "You said you're a mechanic," Qui-Gon said. "I build things," Anakin replied. "I fix things. My mother and I live in the freed worker quarter." He watches Qui-Gon's expression move at that. Freed, the word does not fit the standard Tatooine profile, and Qui-Gon knows it. "We're not slaves anymore." "Recently." "How recently?" Obi-Wan asked. 2 weeks. Another pause. Qui-Gon crouches slightly, bringing himself to something closer to eye level, and the gesture is genuine, not performative, not the practiced condescension of an adult trying to seem approachable. He is simply a very tall man who prefers direct conversation and has noticed that the person he needs to speak with is currently 90 centimeters shorter than him. "Walk with us," Qui-Gon said. He tells them what they need to know. Not everything, not the vault, not the holocron, not the hilt under his wrap, not the specific and impossible knowledge that sits in his chest like a stone he has been carrying since he woke up in his mother's quarter 3 weeks ago. What he tells them is operational. The public comm channels are unreliable and Hutt monitored. The district office will require a face and a plausible commercial reason, and there is a private relay station on the eastern edge of the market district that runs on an independent power source, and whose owner is, at this hour, visiting a gambling establishment 3 streets away. Obi-Wan stops walking again. "You're suggesting we use an unattended communication relay?" "I'm telling you it exists," Anakin said. "What you do with that information is your decision." Qui-Gon makes a sound that is not quite a laugh. He glances at Obi-Wan, and the look between them contains an entire conversation that Anakin has no difficulty reading. "This child," it says. And then something else underneath that. Something that Qui-Gon is clearly working to keep off his face and not entirely succeeding. They use the relay station. The owner is, as promised, absent. The message to the Jedi Council takes 4 minutes to compose and transmit. Anakin waits outside with his back against the wall and his hands in his wrap pockets, and watches the market traffic with the patience of a man who has waded through much longer things than this. Obi-Wan emerges first. He stands beside Anakin against the wall with the energy of a person who has decided on a conversational approach and is organizing his entry point. "How old are you?" he asked. 9. "You don't talk like a 9-year-old. I talk like someone who reads a lot and pays attention," Anakin said. Obi-Wan considers this. "The hilt," he said quietly. "Under your left arm. I noticed it when your wrap shifted at the relay station." Anakin is still for 1 beat. 2. He had underestimated Obi-Wan's observational acuity, which is an error he will not make again and which he should have known better than to make in the first place. "It's mine," he said. "A lightsaber hilt generally belongs to a Jedi," Obi-Wan said, "or occasionally to someone who took it from one, or to someone who found one. The word found sits between them with more weight than its single syllable should reasonably carry." Obi-Wan opens his mouth to follow it, and Qui-Gon steps out of the relay station behind them, reading the body language of the conversation in the way experienced Jedi Masters read everything, completely and immediately. "We should find somewhere less exposed to talk," Qui-Gon said. "It is not quite an invitation. It is not quite a request. It is the particular construction of a man who has already decided where this is going, and is extending the courtesy of making it feel like a choice. Anakin nods. He knows a place. His mother has tea on when they arrive. He did not warn her. She takes one look at the two robed figures her son has brought home, the tall one with the calm of something geological, the younger one with the wariness of a man cataloging exits, and she does something that is entirely characteristic of Shmi Skywalker, which is to put water on without comment and ask if they take anything with it. Qui-Gon accepts. He sits at the small table in their small kitchen in his large frame, with the ease of a man who does not require surroundings to match his scale. He looks at Shmi with something in his expression that is not pity. He is too perceptive for pity, but is its more considered neighbor. Anakin pulls the hilt from under his wrap and sets it on the table. The room gets quieter, though no one has spoken. Qui-Gon looks at the hilt for a long time. His Force presence does the thing that powerful presences do when they encounter something genuinely unexpected. It expands slightly, the contained brightness of it pressing against its own boundaries, before pulling back under discipline. "Where did you get this?" he asked. "I found it," Anakin said. "In the Dune Sea, in a vault that has been sealed for approximately 4,000 years. He meets Qui-Gon's eyes across the table. "I know whose it is. I know what it means. And I think you should see what it does before we have the conversation about what happens next." He picks up the hilt, activates it. Violet light fills the small kitchen, deep and threaded with darkness and edged with that faint reddish flicker, the color of something that has survived its own worst choices and come back changed. His mother's face in that light is calm, the calm of a woman who has decided to trust the thing she cannot fully understand. Obi-Wan's face is something else entirely. Qui-Gon's face is the most interesting of all. He looks at the blade the way a man looks at a proof he has been waiting for, without knowing he was waiting, with recognition and wonder, and the particular weight of a Jedi Master confronting something the code does not have adequate language for. "Revan's blade," Qui-Gon said softly. "Yes," Anakin replied. Outside, the twin suns climbed toward midday. The tea went cold on the table between them, and nobody touched it. Qui-Gon spends the night. Not in the quarter. He is too recognizable, too large a presence in too small a space, and Mos Espa's information networks run on observation and proximity. He takes a room at a lodging house 2 streets over, the kind of place that charges by the hour and asks nothing. Obi-Wan goes with him. They will leave for the docking pads in the morning, the Queen's ship fueled and ready, the hyperspace route to Coruscant calculated. Anakin spends the night on his sleeping pad with the hilt in his hands and does not sleep. The conversation over the cold tea had been careful on both sides. Qui-Gon asked questions with the measured patience of a man who understood that the answers he was receiving were edited, and asked them anyway, extracting what he could from what was offered. Anakin answered what he chose to answer, and deflected the rest with the skill of someone who spent 2 decades navigating imperial politics. The hilt he could explain without lying. Found in the wastes. Sealed vault. Ancient construction. The holocron he did not mention. The Vader memories he did not mention. The specific, detailed knowledge of every event between now and the second Death Star he did not mention. What he told Qui-Gon was this: he is Force-sensitive. Significantly so. He has been training alone using knowledge recovered from the vault. He is 9 years old and his mother is free, and he has no intention of leaving her on Tatooine to follow anyone anywhere, Jedi or otherwise, and he is not asking for permission or approval. Qui-Gon had looked at him across the small table for a long time after that last statement. "No," he agreed finally. "You're not." Obi-Wan had said nothing. His eyes had done enough. The attack comes at the 7th hour of morning. They are 40 meters from the docking pad entrance when the probe droid finds them. Anakin feels it 2 seconds before it appears, the specific dead spot in the Force that mechanical surveillance creates, a gap in the living current shaped exactly like a droid-sized absence. He identifies it as a Sith probe model from the sensor configuration, and the movement pattern before it fully clears the shadow of the fuel depot wall. He doesn't say anything. He moves. His left hand closes on Qui-Gon's sleeve and pulls. Not a child's pull. Not a suggestion, but the directed force of someone who has yanked people clear of blast-ready eye, and knows exactly how much pressure the action requires. Qui-Gon moves because he trusts the Force, and the Force is screaming in the same direction Anakin is already pulling, and Obi-Wan moves because Qui-Gon moves. And the droid's first sensor burst catches empty air where 3 people were standing. "Down," Anakin said. "Behind the fuel cells. Now they go." He goes last, turning as he moves, tracking the droid's flight path with his eyes and his Force sense simultaneously. It is a Sith probe. Which means the Sith already knows about the ship, about the Queen, about the Jedi presence on Tatooine. Which means whoever sent it is already here. He feels Maul before he sees him. The dark side signature is unmistakable. Not the controlled, directed darkness of Vader's presence, not the deep water cold of Palpatine's concealment. This is something rawer than either of those. Rage refined into discipline, hatred shaped into a weapon. The Force twisted into a killing instrument by a training philosophy that allows no other use. It burns in the current the way a coal burns, banked, contained, hot enough to char at a touch. Maul drops from the roof of the fuel depot with his double-bladed saber already lit, twin red blades cutting the morning air, landing in the space between Anakin and the docking pad entrance with the casual precision of a predator that has already calculated the geometry of the kill. He is looking at Qui-Gon. He has not yet looked at the boy standing to Qui-Gon's left. Anakin's hand is already on Revan's hilt. "Qui-Gon," he said quietly, "take Obi-Wan. Get to the ship." Qui-Gon ignites his saber. Green light joins the red already cutting the shadows between the fuel cells. "That is not. I'm not asking," Anakin said. "I'm telling you the optimal play. You and Obi-Wan reach the ship, get the Queen off this planet. I handle the delay." "He's a Sith," Obi-Wan said, and his voice is controlled but only just. "Yes," Anakin agreed. He looks at Maul across the distance between them. Maul looks back, and the cold tactical intelligence behind those yellow eyes is registering the situation and recalculating. One Jedi Master, one Padawan, and a child, not the threat profile he planned for. He's also watching us talk. We have about 4 seconds before he stops waiting to see what we do. Qui-Gon looks at him. The assessment in that look is the full weight of a Jedi Master's experience applied to a 9-year-old's face, and what Qui-Gon finds there makes him still for one long breath. He grabs Obi-Wan's arm and runs. Maul moves to follow. Anakin ignites Revan's blade. The violet light stops Maul as completely as a wall, not because of the color, because of what the color means, a blade that should not exist in this era, a weapon pattern that belongs to a historical period Maul knows as thoroughly as any Sith Lord studies the old wars. He stops mid-step, and his eyes track from the blade to the boy holding it, and back. And for the first time since he dropped from the roof he is not moving. Anakin uses that second. He does not open with aggression. He opens with Form 3, Soresu, the defensive wall, feet wide, blade angled to cover center line and both legs simultaneously, weight distributed for lateral movement. The guard says, "I am not attacking you." The guard also says, "I have calculated every angle from which you can attack me, and I am already standing in the answer to all of them." Maul's eyes narrow. He attacks. The double blade comes in a horizontal arc designed to test the guard's left side, a probe, not a committed strike, fast enough to draw a response that reveals something. Anakin deflects it with the minimum necessary movement, a wrist rotation that redirects rather than blocks, and steps left. The second arc, the committed follow-up that the probe was covering, finds him 6 centimeters outside its reach. Maul resets. His expression has not changed, but his body language has. The slight adjustment of a fighter recalibrating to an opponent who is not behaving as expected. He comes again. Faster, the next 40 seconds are geometry. Anakin fights from Soresu for the first 12 of them, and then shifts, not because the defense is failing, but because maintaining pure defense against a double-bladed opponent of Maul's caliber will eventually find an angle he cannot cover, and he knows it. He shifts to Jarkai principles without the second blade, one hand, but the blade moving in the bilateral patterns of two-weapon technique, covering the angles that Soresu concedes to the double blade's reach advantage. Maul adjusts. He is very good. He is possibly the best blade combatant alive at this particular moment in galactic history, and he is fighting a 9-year-old child, and the child is keeping up with him, and the rage this generates is visible now, cracking through the discipline in the set of his jaw and the force he is putting into strikes that should be placed more precisely. Anakin files that. Rage is information. He lets Maul push him back 4 steps, gives ground deliberately, conceding space to draw aggression, the classic Soresu trap applied at slightly larger scale than the form's designers intended. Maul reads it as retreat. He commits to a thrust aimed at Anakin's right shoulder, full extension, all his speed behind it. Anakin drops under it. Left hand on the ground, full body rotation, comes up on Maul's right side where the double blade cannot reach without a full reset. Revan's blade sweeps once, controlled, precise, not aimed at anything vital. Aimed at the lightsaber hilt, the top half of Maul's double-bladed saber hits the ground. One blade extinguished, one blade remaining. Maul leaps back, creates distance. Reassesses, his face has changed now, the predator calculation is gone. Something colder and more dangerous has replaced it. Not anger, not quite, but the specific focused stillness of a fighter who has stopped underestimating. Anakin stands in the guard and breathes. He holds Maul there for 90 seconds. Not fighting, containing, moving when Maul moves, deflecting when Maul strikes. Giving no opening and taking none, the violet blade and the single red blade trading contact with a rhythm that is almost formal in its discipline. He is not trying to win. He is trying to buy time, and he is doing it, and every second that passes is a second the Queen's ship is closer to escape trajectory. He feels the ship's engines ignite through the Force before he hears them. The massive energy signature of the J-Type 327 Nubian royal vessel powering main drives, the vibration traveling through the durasteel of the landing pad, and into the ground and up through his boots. 30 seconds to launch clearance. Maul feels it too. His posture shifts, not toward Anakin but past him, toward the sound of the engines. The calculation of whether he can disengage and reach the ship before it clears the pad. Anakin steps into his path. No, he said. Maul attacks with everything. The next 20 seconds are the most dangerous of the exchange. No more probing, no more geometric discipline. Maul operating at his actual ceiling. The double blade, the remaining half of it. Moving in patterns that stop being readable to the eye and exist only as Force-sense data. Anakin retreats, deflects, retreats, and takes a burn across his left forearm when a strike he parried successfully still grazed him on its way past. The red plasma leaving a line of scorched skin that he registers and sets aside. The ship lifts. Maul hears it. His attack breaks. He looks up at the ship rising above the pad's edge, at the window closing on his mission, and the calculation behind his eyes reaches its conclusion. He looks back at Anakin, at Revan's blade, at a 9-year-old boy who just held Darth Maul to a standstill for 2 minutes in a side street in Mos Espa. He goes. Not in defeat, Anakin is honest with himself about this, because Vader always was. Maul disengages because his mission priority outranks the satisfaction of this particular fight, and because the ship is already beyond reach, and because something about this engagement has given him information he wants to deliver to his master before he commits to a second attempt. Anakin watches him go. He deactivates Revan's blade, looks at the burn on his forearm, a hand's width of seared skin, already blistering, not deep. He wraps his outer cloth around it. The docking pad is empty. The morning market continues behind him, indifferent. The commerce of a lawless planet absorbing a lightsaber fight with the practiced incuriosity of a place that has seen worse. He breathes. He lost the ship. He knew he was going to lose the ship. Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and the Queen are in hyperspace, and he is standing in an alley in Mos Espa with a burn on his arm and Revan's hilt at his hip. He thinks. Maul is going to report to Sidious. Sidious is going to adjust. He thinks. I have perhaps 2 weeks before the next move. He thinks good. I have things to do. His mother will need to know they are relocating. The holocron has 3 sessions of material he has not yet extracted. There is a Class C transport departing for Coruscant in 4 days if he can arrange passage. He turns toward home. The burn on his forearm has stopped hurting, adrenaline or force healing, or simply the familiar habit of a man who learned a long time ago to file pain as data and move on. He has work to do. He always has work to do. Coruscant from below looks exactly as he remembers. The transport drops through the cloud layer at 0342 station time, and the city spreads beneath them in every direction to the horizon, a single continuous structure, 10,000 years of construction layered over itself until the original ground is a myth, and the surface is a living machine of light and movement that never fully sleeps. From this altitude, at this hour, it looks almost peaceful, the way a battlefield looks peaceful from orbit. Anakin sits at the viewport with his mother asleep in the seat beside him, her head tipped against the headrest, her face doing the thing it does in sleep. He watches Coruscant rise to meet them, and keeps his force sense neutral, and thinks about nothing in particular, which is the closest thing to rest he permits himself these days. The hilt is under his outer wrap. The holocron is in the lining of his travel bag, wrapped in 3 layers of signal-dampening cloth that cost him 4 days of repair work to earn. He does not know if the cloth actually dampens a holocron's force signature. He does not know if it matters. He is here because the next move is here, and the next move has always been here. And the only question is how to walk into the Jedi Temple without losing the things he is carrying before the conversation he needs to have can happen. He has been preparing that conversation for 12 days. Qui-Gon meets them at the transit terminal. He is alone, which means the Council does not yet know they are here. Which means Qui-Gon made a choice about sequencing that Anakin did not ask him to make. He files that, the Jedi Master's instinct toward independent action working, for once, in a direction that is useful. "You came," Qui-Gon said. He looks at Anakin with the particular expression of a man confirming a prediction he wasn't entirely certain of. "I said I would. You said you would consider it." "I considered it," Anakin replied. The answer was yes. Shmi is awake now, alert in the way she becomes in unfamiliar places, not afraid, but cataloging, her eyes moving across the terminal with the practiced assessment of a woman who has spent her life in situations where understanding the environment quickly was a survival skill. She looks at Qui-Gon with the calm directness she brings to everything. "You're the one who wants to take my son to a council of strangers," she said. Qui-Gon meets her eyes. "I want to introduce him to people who may be able to help him understand what he is," he replied. "What happens after that introduction is not my decision to make." Shmi looks at him for a long moment. Then, she looks at Anakin. He gives her nothing back. It is her read to make, her judgment, and he will not preempt it. "All right," she said. The council chamber is exactly as he remembers and nothing like he remembers. He remembers it from the inside of Vader's armor, in the versions where Vader returned to that room at the Emperor's direction to deliver reports, to receive assignments, to stand in the center of the circle of seats and feel the weight of what that circle had been and was no longer. He remembers the light, the circular windows, the way the city fills the glass on all sides so that the chamber seems to float above the world rather than sit on top of it. He does not remember being small enough that the room itself feels large. He stands in the center of the circle. 12 seats. 10 occupied. Yoda on his chair to the left, smaller than anyone expects when they see him for the first time, and more present than anyone expects after that. Mace Windu directly across, his hands folded in his lap with the stillness of a man who has decided something before the meeting began, and is waiting for the meeting to catch up with his conclusion. The others arranged around them, Ki-Adi-Mundi, Plo Koon, Depa Billaba, the full weight of the Order's senior judgment assembled in a circle around a 9-year-old boy. Anakin stands in the center and lets them look. Yoda speaks first. This is correct. Mace would open with the conclusion and Yoda opens with the question, and the question is always more useful than the conclusion. "Feel you, we can," Yoda said. His eyes are half-lidded, his ears slightly forward, the posture of deep attention wearing the costume of relaxation. Strong in the Force. Very strong. A pause. "But something else. Also, yes," Anakin said. "Describe it," Mace said. His voice carries the flat authority of a man who is accustomed to being the most dangerous person in rooms and has just met a situation that may be revising that assumption. "What you feel in the Force." "Describe it." Anakin considers for a moment, He has prepared this, but preparation and performance are different things, and the performance must be calibrated precisely. Too much and he reads as a threat. Too little and he reads as a child who doesn't understand what he's carrying. Both sides, he said. At the same time. Not alternating. Not in conflict. Present simultaneously. The way two hands are simultaneously present. Each distinct, each with its own function. Used together. The silence that follows has texture. Plo Koon's force presence shifts in a way that reads as discomfort held under control. Ki-Adi-Mundi's head tilts slightly. Mace's hands, folded in his lap, tighten a fraction. Impossible, Mace said. Theoretically, apparently not, Anakin replied. Mace is the one who asks about the blade. He has been looking at the hilt visible at Anakin's hip since the moment Anakin entered the chamber. And the looking has the specific quality of a man recognizing something he doesn't want to recognize. Where did you get that weapon? I found it. In a Rakatan vault in the Dune Sea on Tatooine. Sealed for approximately 4,000 years. He meets Mace's eyes directly. It belonged to Revan. Another silence. This one is different in quality from the last. Less intellectual and more visceral. The kind of quiet that happens when a room full of very controlled people react simultaneously and simultaneously suppress the reaction. Revan Ki-Adi-Mundi said, and the name in his voice carries the weight of a word, retrieved from a deep archive, something known about, but not encountered, historical rather than living. Yes, a Sith Lord, Mace said. A Jedi who fell, Anakin replied, and then returned, who fought his own former apprentice to protect the Republic, who developed a philosophy of force use that does not match your code because it predates your code's current form. He keeps his voice level. He is not arguing, he is presenting. The Council has access to the historical records. I'm not telling you anything that isn't in them. The records, Mace said, also describe what Revan did before the return. The atrocities, the Sith Empire, the destruction. Yes, Anakin said. They do. I've read those too. He does not look away from Mace's eyes. The records also describe what he did after, and what he became, and the fact that the philosophy he developed after, balance, discipline, neither extreme, produced one of the most effective force users in the Republic's history. He pauses. I'm not Revan. I'm not claiming his legacy. I'm telling you what I found and what I've learned from it. Yoda has not spoken since his first observation. He speaks now. Trained you, the holocron has, he said. It is not a question. Yes, show us, Yoda said simply. Mace's head turns toward Yoda. Something passes between them that does not require words, a disagreement compressed into a glance. Mace's position clear, Yoda's decision clearer. Anakin ignites Revan's blade. The violet light fills the chamber, and the reaction to it moves through the assembled council like a current through water, each presence in the Force responding differently. The variations revealing something about each person. Plo Koon's reaction is closest to wonder. Ki-Adi-Mundi's is closest to alarm. Depa Billaba stills completely. Mace's presence does something Anakin has never felt Mace Windu's presence do in any version of any encounter he has experienced. It contracts, pulling inward. The protective instinct of a man whose particular connection to the Force's edge has just registered something it recognizes and does not fully know how to categorize. Yoda simply watches. Anakin runs a form. Not a demonstration, not the curated performance of a student showing their best work. He runs the form he runs each morning at the 3rd hour. The integration practice the holocron prescribed, Ceresu's foundation, Jarkai's bilateral principles, Xian's redirective geometry, and threaded through all of it the dark side current that does not overwhelm the technique, but informs it, the way a deeper understanding of gravity informs the way an engineer builds bridges. He runs it for 90 seconds, and stops. The chamber is very quiet. The dark side, Mace said. His voice has lost some of its flatness. Not emotion exactly, but pressure. A man speaking carefully because the alternative is speaking without care. You're drawing on it. Now. In this room. Yes, Anakin said. And you believe that's safe. I believe it's controlled, Anakin replied. Those aren't the same thing. Nothing is safe. Everything is controlled, or it isn't. Mace stands. He is very tall, and in the violet light of Revan's blade his expression is the careful architecture of a man holding several positions simultaneously. Duty, instinct, doctrine, and beneath all of them something that Anakin, who spent 20 years studying the man indirectly, recognizes as a grudging intellectual honesty that Mace Windu cannot fully suppress even when he wants to. You're a child, Mace said, 9 years old. Using techniques that masters have died attempting to, I'm aware of the risks, Anakin said quietly. Better than you are. The statement lands. It is slightly too precise. Mace's eyes narrow. What does that mean? Anakin deactivates the blade. The chamber returns to Coruscant's ambient light, gray and urban and ordinary after the violet. It means I've studied this carefully, he said. It means I know what the failure modes look like. And it means I'm still standing here, balanced, in front of the full Jedi Council, and the Force is not alarmed. He looks around the circle. Are any of you sensing corruption? Darkness without discipline? A mind being consumed? Silence. Yoda's eyes open fully for the first time since Anakin entered the room. No, the old master said softly. Not sensing that, I am. His ears are fully forward now. The weight of centuries in his face is doing something that is not quite recognition and not quite relief, sensing something else entirely. He looks at Anakin with the expression of a being who has lived long enough to be genuinely surprised, and is, against all prior probability, genuinely surprised. Sit, Yoda said. Much to discuss, there is. Mace sits back down. He does it with the controlled precision of a man who has not changed his position but is willing to delay his conclusion. That is enough. For now. Anakin sits. Outside the chamber windows, Coruscant moves through its perpetual day in every direction, indifferent and enormous, 10,000 years of civilization going about its business, while, in a circle of 12 seats at the top of a 5-spired temple, a 9-year-old boy with a dead legend's blade begins the conversation that will determine whether that civilization gets a different future than the one he already lived through. He breathes. He is ready. He has been ready since Tatooine. Palpatine's office smells of old stone and expensive wood, and the particular cold that comes from climate control set slightly below comfort, a deliberate choice, Anakin knows, the kind of environmental detail a man like Sidious uses to keep visitors slightly off balance without being able to identify why. He has been in this office before, many times, as Vader, standing at attention while the Emperor dictated the destruction of planets and the deaths of populations with the same mild, considered tone he used to discuss Senate procedure. The desk is the same. The view through the tall windows is the same. Coruscant's government district in the gray morning light. The Senate rotunda visible to the left. The orderly geometry of a civilization that believes itself stable. He sits in the visitor's chair across from the most dangerous being alive, and folds his hands in his lap and waits. The meeting was Palpatine's invitation. It arrived through Qui-Gon, framed as a courtesy, the Supreme Chancellor-elect extending a welcome to the remarkable young person the Jedi Council has been discussing. Qui-Gon delivered it with the careful neutrality of a man who did not entirely trust the invitation, and did not want to say so directly. Anakin accepted without hesitation, which made Qui-Gon's expression do something complicated. You don't have to go, Qui-Gon said. I know, Anakin replied. He went. Palpatine enters from the inner office precisely 3 minutes after Anakin is shown to the chair, long enough to be a power gesture, short enough to be deniable as one. He moves with the unhurried grace of a man who has spent 60 years perfecting the performance of benevolence. His robes the deep crimson of the Chancellor's office, his face arranged in the warm, slightly rueful expression he deploys for children and constituents he wants to disarm. He stops when he sees Anakin's face. Not a large stop, not visible to anyone who wasn't reading him as carefully as Anakin is reading him. A quarter-second hesitation in the step, the barest recalibration behind the eyes. the specific micro-expression of a man whose prepared approach has just encountered something his preparation didn't account for. Anakin's face is 9 years old. His eyes are not. Palpatine completes the step, settles into the chair behind the desk, arranges his hands in the practiced posture of open, accessible authority. "Young Anakin," he said, "I've heard remarkable things about you." "Chancellor," Anakin replied. The voice he uses is a child's voice, pitched correctly, deferential in its register but not in its content. He has been practicing the calibration for 12 days, how much of Vader to leave visible, how much to conceal. Too much concealment and Palpatine learns nothing useful about the threat he faces. Too much visibility and Palpatine begins to understand what he is dealing with before Anakin is ready for him to understand it. He has chosen slightly more visible than safe. Because the alternative is a longer game, and the longer game costs more people. "The Council tells me you've been before them," Palpatine said. His tone is the warm curiosity of a man delighted by an unusual child. "That you carry an extraordinary weapon." "They were generous with their time," Anakin said. "And?" "What did they conclude?" "That they'd like to study the situation further." He meets Palpatine's eyes across the desk. "They're being careful." "As they should be," Palpatine agreed. "The Jedi are nothing if not careful." The warmth in his voice remains unchanged, and so does the faint, almost imperceptible note beneath it, the harmonic of a man who has spent decades cultivating the appearance of Jedi admiration while building the mechanism of their destruction. In my experience, however, care can sometimes shade into, shall we say, excessive caution. A tendency to see threat where there is only difference. There it is. First contact. 40 seconds into the conversation. Anakin considers his response for one beat, long enough to look like a child processing a complicated idea, short enough not to read his calculation. "They seemed more curious than threatened," he said. Master Yoda especially. The slight reframe. He watches Palpatine absorb it. "Of course," Palpatine said smoothly. "Yoda is wise." A pause, perfectly weighted. "Though wisdom and openness are not always the same quality, are they? The very old sometimes find new things. Difficult." "I suppose that's true," Anakin said. He does not agree with the premise. He lets the words carry agreement and keeps the position behind them intact, the way a fortification holds its shape while its face absorbs contact. This is the technique. Never argue, never resist directly, never give Palpatine's rhetoric a surface to push against. Let it pass. File it. Palpatine talks for 20 minutes. He is very good. He is in fact the best Anakin has ever encountered at this specific form of communication, the conversation that appears to be about one thing while being entirely about another, every sentence doing double work, the surface meaning and the subterranean meaning running in parallel like two signals on the same wire. He asks about Tatooine, about the vault, about the blade, all genuine-sounding curiosity, all data gathering. He comments on the Jedi Order with the careful ambiguity of a man who supports them officially and is beginning to introduce alternative readings to a target he has identified as susceptible. He speaks about potential, about power, about the limitations of institutions built by people who feared what they did not understand. Every line of it Anakin has heard before, not variations, not similar approaches. The actual lines, or close enough that the differences are tactical adjustments rather than new material. He sat in Palpatine's company for 13 years as Anakin Skywalker, and 23 years as Vader, and he knows this script with the intimacy of a man who was shaped by it. He lets none of that show. What he shows is a child who is listening carefully, who finds the Chancellor interesting, who occasionally asks a question that is slightly more perceptive than a 9-year-old should ask, and slightly less perceptive than a Sith Lord's apprentice would ask. The band he is performing in is narrow. He stays in it. The moment comes 31 minutes in. Palpatine has been building toward it. Anakin could feel the conversational architecture of the approach, each preceding segment laying foundation for this one. He speaks about Anakin's mother. Gently, with the precise practiced warmth of a man who has researched the pressure point and is now applying measured force to it. It must have been difficult, Palpatine said. Growing up in that environment. Watching someone you love living under such constraints. Anakin meets his eyes. She's free now, he said. Yes, a pause. Just long enough. Through your own efforts, I understand. Remarkable, for someone so young. The warmth in the Chancellor's expression is perfect. It has been perfect for the entire conversation. You clearly care for her deeply. That kind of love, that determination to protect the people we love, is something the Jedi don't always understand in my experience. They speak of attachment with such caution. The knowledge sits in his chest like a stone. Not the words. The knowledge underneath the words. That this man, in another version of this conversation, succeeded. That this precise rhetorical approach, refined across decades, applied at the exact pressure points of love and fear and institutional disappointment, produced Darth Vader. That the Anakin Skywalker who sat in a room like this one and heard words like these, and felt the Jedi Code's silence on the subject of Padme's death as confirmation of everything Palpatine was implying, that man existed. He lived. He burned. He breathes through it. The Jedi I've spoken with seem to understand it fine, he said. His voice is even. Master Qui-Gon especially. He asked about her first thing. Palpatine's expression does not change. His Force presence does. The smallest contraction, barely perceptible, the sensation of a calculation being revised. Of course, he said warmly. Qui-Gon is exceptional. The conversation moves on. Palpatine does not attempt a second approach on the same vector. He is too skilled for that. He pivots, smoothly, to the subject of Anakin's future training, the Council's deliberations, the question of what path makes sense for someone whose gifts don't fit neatly into existing structures. Anakin listens. He asks questions. He thanks the Chancellor for his time. He stands to leave, and Palpatine stands with him, the gesture of a man who respects his guest, who marks the departure as significant. He extends one hand across the desk. Anakin takes it. The contact lasts 3 seconds. In those 3 seconds, Palpatine's Force presence moves across the connection with the delicacy of long practice, not intruding, not pushing, simply reading. The passive scan of a man who has done this so many times, it requires no conscious effort. Reading for susceptibility. Reading for the emotional architecture beneath the surface. The love, the fear, the ambition, the specific shape of what can be used. Anakin lets him read what he intends him to read. Not the full truth. Never the full truth. But a selected truth, arranged carefully. A child who is powerful and knows it, who is uncertain about the Jedi and their code, who loves his mother with a ferocity that has no institutional container. All true. All incomplete. The lock without the key. Palpatine releases his hand. His expression is the warm, sincere expression of a man delighted by a promising young person. And beneath it, visible only to someone who knows exactly what they are looking at, is the satisfaction of a predator that has located its next project. He does not know he has just read a curated exhibit. My door is always open to you, Palpatine said. Whatever the Council decides. Thank you, Chancellor, Anakin replied. Outside, the Coruscant air hits him at 40 stories above ground level, cold and recycled, and full of the particular smell of a city that never stops running. He stands on the landing platform for a moment and breathes it. Qui-Gon is waiting at the platform's edge. He does not ask how it went. He looks at Anakin's face and reads what the face is willing to give him, which is limited, but not nothing. Well, he said. He's exactly what the old stories say he is, Anakin replied. Qui-Gon is quiet for a moment. You knew something was wrong with him before you went in. It is not a question. Anakin looks at the city spreading in every direction below them and considers his answer. I knew enough to be careful, he said. The Force makes some things clear, even to a 9-year-old. Qui-Gon accepts this. He does not push. It is the quality in him that has always been his greatest strength and his most considerable gift. The recognition of when a truth is being protected rather than hidden, and the patience to let the protection stand until it's no longer needed. They walk back toward the temple in the gray morning light. The vote of no confidence passes on a Tuesday. Anakin watches it from a public terminal in the Jedi Temple's outer visitor hall, standing beside his mother, the Senate feed playing in real time. On the floor of the chamber, Queen Amidala speaks with the contained precision of a woman who has decided on a course and will not be moved from it, her address measured, her motion formal, the weight of a planet's suffering behind every word. The chamber responds with the orchestrated momentum of a political body that has been positioned for exactly this moment, without knowing it. Chancellor Valorum's face on the secondary feed is the face of a man watching something he built being disassembled in front of him, and understanding there is nothing left to do about it. In the Naboo delegation box, just visible at the feed's edge, Senator Palpatine watches with the expression of a man performing reluctance while engineering inevitability. He suggested this path to the Queen in private. The Queen chose to walk it. The distinction is one that Palpatine will spend the rest of his career ensuring no one examines too closely. Shmi watches beside him. "That man," she said, meaning Palpatine, "the one who called you in." "Yes. He arranged this." Anakin looks at her. She is watching the feed with the expression she brings to problems she is solving. Not alarmed, not emotional, simply processing. It occurs to him, not for the first time, that his mother is considerably more perceptive than the galaxy ever gave her credit for. "Yes," he said. She nods once, files it, says nothing further. The Council's decision comes 2 days later. He is summoned to the chamber alone, not with Qui-Gon, not with Obi-Wan, which is itself information about how the deliberation concluded. He walks through the temple corridors at the pace of a man who has walked toward harder things than this and found something useful on the other side of them. Mace speaks first this time. Yoda's concession, or Yoda's strategy, either reading, is plausible. "We've spent considerable time with this question," Mace said. His voice has shed some of the pressure from their first encounter. What remains is harder and more honest, a man who has reached a position he can defend rather than one he is still constructing. A child exhibiting the force signature you carry, the weapon you carry, the nature of your training. He pauses. None of it fits our existing framework. "I want you to know we're aware of that." "I appreciate that," Anakin said. "What we've concluded," Mace continued, "is that we cannot train you. Not in the traditional sense. The code doesn't have architecture for what you are, and attempting to fit you into it would be..." He stops. Starts again. "Counterproductive." Anakin waits. "What we're offering," Mace said, "is observation. Access. Consultation on specific questions as they arise. Not apprenticeship. Not the traditional path." His eyes are steady. "And a request." "What request?" "That you don't operate against the Order's interests. That if you encounter situations where our paths intersect, you communicate, rather than act unilaterally." He pauses. "We're not asking for obedience. We're asking for coordination." Anakin looks at Mace, then at Yoda, who has been still throughout, his eyes at their half-lidded median. The expression he wears when he has already accepted where something is going and is letting it get there. "That's reasonable," Anakin said. Mace blinks. He had prepared for negotiation. "There are conditions," Anakin added. "I won't share the holocron's contents without consent. My mother stays with me regardless of where I'm posted or deployed. And I'm not bound by the code. I'll extend every professional courtesy to the Order's doctrine. But it's not mine." "Silence," agreed, Yoda said. Mace turns to look at Yoda. The look contains the compressed residue of a debate that clearly did not end cleanly. "Agreed," Mace said, after a beat that costs him something visible. The call from Naboo comes that evening. Governor Bibble's message, fragmented by Trade Federation signal jamming, reaches the Jedi Temple in pieces, enough pieces to assemble the picture. The occupation continues. The population suffers. The Queen's return is necessary, and the window for it is narrowing as the Federation consolidates its administrative control of the planet's surface. Queen Amidala requests Jedi escort. The Council assigns Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan. Anakin requests to accompany them. The Council's response takes 4 hours. Then, yes, with the specific caveat that he operates within Qui-Gon's judgment in the field. He accepts the caveat without argument, because Qui-Gon's judgment in the field is, with one or two notable exceptions, excellent, and because the caveat is a formality. Both he and the Council understand that a 9-year-old who held Darth Maul to a standstill in a Mos Espa alleyway is not, in any practical sense, operating under anyone's authority but his own. He goes to tell his mother. She takes it the way she takes most things, without drama, with complete clarity about what she thinks. "You're going to a planet under military occupation," she said, "to help a queen retake her government. With 2 Jedi, and whatever plan you've been building since Tatooine. Yes, and you need me to stay here. The temple has secure quarters. The Council has agreed you'll be housed there, with full access, for as long as needed." He meets her eyes. "I know what I'm asking." Shmi is quiet for a moment. Outside the guest quarters window, Coruscant does what Coruscant always does, which is continue existing at full volume and full light in all directions. "You've known things," she said, "since before the Jedi came, since before we left Tatooine." She says it as a fact, not an accusation. "You knew about the contract before you came to me with the number. You knew about the motivator before you surfaced it for Watto." She pauses. "You know things about what's coming. Not guesses. Knowledge." He holds her gaze. He does not confirm and does not deny, because she is his mother, and she is already certain, and the confirmation would only be for the form of it. "I'm going to be all right," he said. "I know you are," she replied. "That's not what I'm asking." She steps forward and puts both hands on his face, a gesture from his childhood that is simultaneously exactly right and slightly disorienting, given that the childhood in question is the one he is currently physically inhabiting. "I'm asking you to come back." "I will," he said. He means it the way he means very few things, without qualification, without the tactical hedging that underlies most of his statements. He will come back. He has survived worse than a Trade Federation occupation, with far less than what he is currently carrying. She pulls him in. He lets her. The journey to Naboo takes 14 hours. He spends 6 of them with the holocron, 3 more running forms in the ship's small cargo bay, and the final 5 in the forward observation compartment, watching the stars move and thinking about Maul. Maul will be there. This is not speculation. It is the direct implication of Sidious's operational pattern. And Sidious does not abandon assets, simply because they reported an anomaly. Maul will have reported the Mos Espa encounter. Sidious will have adjusted. The adjustment will not be to pull Maul back. Sidious does not work that way. The adjustment will be in briefing, in tactical approach, in the specific instructions Maul is given about the child with the violet blade. He thinks about what Sidious would tell Maul, given what Maul reported. He would tell him, the child is the primary threat. He would tell him to assess before engaging. He would tell him that whatever the child is, the child's force signature represents something that cannot be allowed to reach its potential, and that neutralization is the priority above the Queen, above the Jedi, above the political objective. He thinks Sidious is right about the threat assessment and wrong about the neutralization window. He also thinks Maul is going to be angry. The Mos Espa fight cost him something, not physically, but in the internal accounting of a warrior who categorizes the world in terms of defeats and victories. Anakin disarmed him. A child disarmed him in a side street while the mission left without him. That sits in Maul the way certain things sit in warriors, not as useful information, but as a wound. And wounds affect decision-making in ways that training is designed to prevent and rarely fully succeeds. An angry Maul is slightly more predictable than a cold one. He files this as an asset. Naboo from orbit is everything Tatooine is not, green and blue and waterlogged, a planet that had the good fortune to form in a temperate zone, and the bad fortune to sit on a hyperspace route that made it strategically interesting. The Trade Federation's control grid is visible even from this altitude, the sensor net hanging over the atmosphere like a web that knows it is being approached. Qui-Gon stands beside him at the forward viewport. "Your plan," he said, not asking whether there is one, asking what it is. "The Queen retakes the palace," Anakin said. "That requires the Gungan army. The Gungan army requires Jar Jar Binks to broker the alliance, which requires the Queen to ask for it in person and ask correctly. He pauses. The ground battle buys time. The real objective is the palace, and inside the palace, the Viceroy. Cut the command structure, the droid army loses central coordination. Qui-Gon is quiet for a moment. "You've thought about this." "I've thought about everything," Anakin said. "And Maul, he'll be there." He keeps his voice even. "In the palace complex, most likely. He'll let the ground battle proceed. It doesn't serve his mission, which is us, not the Queen's forces. He'll wait for the Jedi." "For us," Qui-Gon said. "For you," Anakin replied. "He knows your face. He knows Obi-Wan. He doesn't fully know mine yet, which is the only tactical asymmetry we have, and I intend to use it." Qui-Gon looks at him. The expression on his face is the one Anakin has come to recognize over the weeks of their acquaintance, the look of a man who has been a Jedi Master for decades and has just encountered a situation for which that experience provides only partial guidance. "You're 9 years old," Qui-Gon said. "I'm aware," Anakin replied. "It bothers me too sometimes." The planet fills the viewport. Somewhere below, in a palace full of droids and a swamp full of Gungans and a generator complex that will shortly become the most important tactical terrain on the planet, the next few hours are already being arranged by a force that tends toward its own conclusions regardless of what anyone plans. He breathes. He checks the hilt at his hip. He is ready. Below them, Naboo waits. The descent begins. He stands at the viewport until the atmosphere takes them and the stars disappear behind cloud cover. And then he turns and walks toward the cargo bay to run one more form before they land. Because a man who has time before a battle and does not use it has no one but himself to account to for what happens during it. Revan's blade at his hip, his mother's hands on his face, still warm in the memory. 12 days of holocron sessions folded into his muscle memory. 45 years of combined experience in the worst the galaxy has to offer, currently housed in a body that weighs 32 kilograms and cannot yet reach the top shelf in the temple's archive room without asking for help. He runs the form in the cargo bay while Naboo rises to meet them. He does not miss a step. The generator complex breathes. That is the only word for it. The enormous machinery of Theed's power infrastructure cycling through its operational rhythms. The hum of it felt more in the chest than heard with the ears. A subsonic pulse that makes the floor vibrate faintly underfoot and turns the air in the corridors into something almost living. The red energy fields between the shield doors cycle in their patterns. On and off. On and off. A mechanical heartbeat marking time, in crimson. Anakin moves through the outer corridor at Qui-Gon's left shoulder, Obi-Wan a step behind on the right. Outside, the Gungan army is holding. He can feel the ground battle's chaos at the edge of his force sense, hundreds of lives in motion. The dull percussion of energy weapons and the collective terror and resolve of a people fighting for ground they have never fought for before. The Queen's team has split off toward the throne room. The plan is in motion. The plan is in motion. And Maul is here. He felt the signature the moment they entered the complex, that same banked coal burn, the force twisted into killing precision, positioned ahead of them in the corridor system, waiting, still, the patience of a predator that has selected its kill site and sees no reason to leave it. Maul knows they are coming. He allowed them to enter. The first shield door opens at the corridor's end, and there he is. Different from Mos Espa, the posture is the same, the ready stillness, the double-bladed saber already in hand but not yet lit. But the quality beneath the posture has changed. In Mos Espa he was cold, operational, a weapon deployed with professional precision. Here he is something with more heat to it. Not rage, not yet. Controlled fury, which is more dangerous than either pure calm or pure rage, because it has the force of one and the directability of the other. He looks at Qui-Gon first. Then Obi-Wan. Then, with a pause that has weight in it, at Anakin. The pause says, "I remember you." Anakin meets his eyes and says nothing, because there is nothing useful to say, and because Vader learned a long time ago that the fighter who speaks before a duel is the fighter who needs the duel to mean something beyond its tactical purpose. He doesn't need it to mean anything. He needs it to end, correctly. Maul ignites the double blade. Twin red lines in the gray corridor, the sound of them a lower register than Revan's violet, a heavier hum. He settles into his opening guard, the defensive posture that is only technically defensive. Maul's guard positions are compressed springs, energy stored for release. Qui-Gon ignites his saber. Obi-Wan ignites his. Anakin's hand rests on Revan's hilt, and does not draw. They go in together, Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan, the way two fighters trained in the same tradition move when they have worked together long enough, not perfectly synchronized, not choreographed, but mutually aware, each covering the angle the other leaves open, the combination more than the sum. Maul meets them without retreating. He meets them going forward. The next 40 seconds are the most technically demanding thing Anakin has watched in either of his lives. Maul fights both of them simultaneously, and neither of them is enough. That is the truth of it, the clean, difficult truth. Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi are not ordinary Jedi. They are among the best the Order currently has. And Maul is not working hard to hold them. He is working, but not hard. The double blade moves in arcs that force both Jedi to divide their attention between their own defense and their partner's exposure. The geometry of a two-bladed weapon against two single opponents inherently more complex than any of the three fighters' individual skill level. Qui-Gon weathers it. His Ataru is built for this. The acrobatic form finding angles that shouldn't work and briefly working them. Obi-Wan presses hard on the left, forces a redirect, creates half a second of opening that Qui-Gon uses to push Maul back one step. One step. In 40 seconds. Anakin watches. He tracks Maul's movement patterns the way he tracked them in Mos Espa and adds the new data. The slight favoring of the left side on the double blade's lower arc. The half-beat compression before the spinning attack he uses as a reset. The tell in his footwork when he is about to commit to a thrust versus a sweep. He is building the map. He needs the map to be complete before he enters. The shield doors cycle. The mechanism operates on a timer. And the timer does not care about the fight happening in its corridor. The fields come down in sequence, opening and closing sections of the passage in their programmed rhythm. And Maul has clearly studied the pattern, because when the first interior door closes it separates exactly as he intended. Obi-Wan on one side, Qui-Gon and Anakin on the other. The red field between them solid and impassable. Obi-Wan hits the field and stops. His face through the energy barrier is the face of a man who has just had his partner taken from him by geometry and is running calculations about how long until the next cycle. Maul turns to Qui-Gon. His expression does something that is almost satisfaction, the expression of a plan confirmed. Qui-Gon adjusts his grip. He does not look at Anakin. His force presence does something quiet and settled, the preparation of a man committing to the next 30 seconds with everything he has. Maul attacks. Anakin draws Revan's blade. Violet light in the corridor, the reddish flicker at the edge, casting moving shadows on the generator walls. Maul's eyes cut to him mid-attack. The reflex of a fighter who cannot afford to ignore a new variable, and the cut costs him a fraction of timing. The committed strike at Qui-Gon arriving a quarter step late, Qui-Gon deflecting it instead of absorbing it. That fraction is enough. Anakin enters the fight. He comes in on Maul's right side, the same angle he used in Mos Espa, because the map he built in Mos Espa showed him that Maul's right side response relies on the lower arc of the double blade, and the lower arc has that half-step compression before it commits. He is already inside the compression window before the arc begins. The violet blade intercepts the red at the hilt rather than the plasma, a wrist strike designed to jar rather than cut. Maul absorbs it. Pivots. Suddenly the corridor geometry has changed. 3 fighters in a space designed for 1. Qui-Gon pressing from the left, Anakin from the right, the double blades reach advantage negated by proximity. For the first time in this fight, Maul retreats. 2 steps back. 3. He is reconfiguring. Anakin can feel the tactical reassessment happening in real time. Maul's force presence shifting from offensive architecture to defensive analysis, the fighter's mind rebuilding its approach around the new variable. He gives Maul the time to reconfigure, because he needs Maul to commit to a new approach. A fighter mid-reconfiguration is not a fighter mid-attack, and mid-attack is the only moment the map he built becomes usable. Qui-Gon glances at him. 1 second, no more. His eyes ask a question. Anakin gives him the answer with his feet, shifting left, drawing Maul's attention that direction, creating the implication of a coordinated two-side press. Qui-Gon reads it and moves right. Maul reads it too. He is too good not to. He reads the coordinated press and makes his decision. Pivot to Anakin's side. Use the double blade's reach to create space. Reset to distance and rebuild on his terms. He pivots. Full commitment, full speed, the double blade leading. Anakin drops. Not a fall, a controlled descent. Left knee to the floor, body rotating under the arc of the double blade as it passes over him. The plasma heat of it crossing his face close enough that he feels it. He comes up, on the inside. Maul's full extension has him at maximum reach, with minimum control. Anakin's blade is already moving. Not at Maul. At the hilt. The same cut as Mos Espa. Precise, controlled, the violet blade takes the double blade's connection joint at the exact point of its structural tolerance, and the lower half drops, one red blade extinguishing. The remaining half saber spinning in Maul's grip as he completes the pivot and finds himself disarmed by half, inside his own reach, with a violet blade 6 centimeters from his neck. He stops. Qui-Gon stops. The corridor holds the three of them in place. The generators hum the only sound. The red field cycling somewhere behind them. Obi-Wan on the other side of it, doing what Anakin can feel him doing, pressing against the field, ready, watching through the energy barrier. Maul looks at the blade 6 centimeters from his neck, looks at the hand holding it, looks at the face above the hand. His yellow eyes are doing something they did not do in Mos Espa. In Mos Espa there was calculation, surprise, the tactical reassessment of an underestimated opponent. Here there is something underneath that, something rawer and older, the thing that lives below training and conditioning and Sith doctrine in a being who has been shaped into a weapon since childhood. It looks, for one unguarded second, almost like recognition. Like the moment a predator encounters something in the wild that it does not have a category for. Anakin looks back at him. He breathes. 1 breath, 2. He thinks about Mos Espa. The deliberate choice not to finish it. The calculation that Maul disengaging served the mission. The logic was sound then. He stands in the logic now and checks it against what he knows. Maul, contained, would be a Sith Lord loose in a galaxy that has no Sith containment infrastructure. Maul, alive, would return to Sidious for redeployment. Maul would be aimed at Qui-Gon again, or at Obi-Wan, or at his mother in the temple quarters, or at the Queen, whose political survival is the first piece of the counter-architecture he is building against Sidious's plan. Maul is not Vader. There is no redemption arc in what he has seen of this being. Not the cruelty with grief that lived in Vader, not the buried conscience that a son's love could eventually reach. There is only the weapon, and the weapon's maker, and the question of whether to leave the weapon in the world. The knowledge sits in his chest like a stone. He makes the decision without drama, without ceremony. The way Vader made hard decisions, by completing them, not by performing them. He moves his wrist. The generator complex breathes on. The hum continues. The red fields cycle in their pattern. On and off, indifferent. Qui-Gon stands very still for a moment. Then he deactivates his saber. He looks at what is on the floor and then at Anakin. And his Force presence does something complicated and quiet. Not condemnation, not approval. Something older and heavier than either. The look of a man who has lived long enough to understand that there are choices without clean outcomes. Only choices with defensible ones. The shield door cycles. Obi-Wan comes through. He takes in the corridor in one sweep. The scene. Maul. Anakin. The deactivated violet blade now reclipped at Anakin's hip. His face does several things in quick succession, and then it does the thing Obi-Wan's face does when he decides that processing comes later. He looks at Qui-Gon. "Are you hurt?" "No," Qui-Gon said. Obi-Wan looks at Anakin. Something in his expression has shifted from every previous version of it. The wariness is still there. But below the wariness is something new. Something that did not exist in the temple or on the ship or in his mother's small kitchen. It is not quite trust. It is the precursor to trust. The moment before. "The throne room," Anakin said. "The Viceroy's still in the palace. Obi-Wan nods. Qui-Gon nods. They move. The generator complex breathes behind them, and the crimson corridors fall back into the automated rhythm of machinery that does not care what happened in it. And outside the palace walls the Gungan army holds the field, and above the planet the blockade wavers. And somewhere in a Coruscant office a Sith Lord sits, with his fingers steepled and feels, across the distance of hyperspace, the place in the Force where his weapon used to be. The three of them walk toward the throne room, toward the end of one story, toward the beginning of another. The Viceroy surrenders at midday. Newt Gunray sits in the throne room with his hands folded on the table and his legal representatives already composing appeals to courts that will take years to resolve anything. And Queen Amidala accepts his surrender with the specific, contained satisfaction of a woman who has been patient through things that would have broken someone with less spine. The droid army goes offline in segments. First the palace district, then the city perimeter, then the outlying occupation zones. Each segment going dark as the central control signal drops, the mechanical army folding like a structure whose foundation has been removed. Anakin watches from the throne room's edge. He does not feel triumphant. He feels the quiet of a man who has moved a heavy thing from one place to another and set it down carefully. The work is not finished. The work is not close to finished. But this particular piece of it is done, and done correctly, and that is enough to register before moving to what comes next. Qui-Gon finds him at the window afterward, looking out at Theed coming back to itself, citizens emerging, the particular dazed relief of a population that has been held under and is now remembering what air feels like. The council wants to debrief, Qui-Gon said. I know, they'll want to revisit the training question, after what happened in the generator complex. He pauses. Not awkwardly. Qui-Gon Jinn has never been awkward about difficult subjects in Anakin's experience. Just deliberate. They'll make a formal offer. Anakin turns from the window. I know that too. Qui-Gon looks at him. And I'll give them a formal answer. He goes to his mother first. The temple courier delivered her safely to Theed on the second day of the battle. Anakin arranged it before departure, a contingency he did not mention to the council because it did not require their approval. She is in the guest quarters of the palace when he arrives, seated at a table with a cup of something warm, looking out at the Solu River through a tall window with the expression of a woman who is locating herself in a new context. She looks at him when he enters, looks at the burn scar on his left forearm, faded now with 3 weeks of healing but still visible. Looks at his face. Done? She said. Done, he replied. She stands. He crosses the room. She holds him the way she held him in their quarter in Mos Espa, when he pressed her freedom chip into her hand. The same grip. The grip of a woman who has trained herself not to hold things too tightly, and does it anyway when it matters. He lets himself be held. Outside the window, Theed's river catches the afternoon light and carries it downstream. The council convenes on Coruscant 9 days later. He makes the journey with Qui-Gon and Obi-Wan and his mother and the Queen, who has developed the habit of consulting him on tactical matters with the directness of someone who has assessed a resource and intends to use it. He finds this reasonable and works with it accordingly. The council chamber is the same. The 12 seats, the city and the windows, the light that makes the room feel like it floats above the world. He stands in the center of the circle and feels the geometry of it. The last time he stood here, it was to demonstrate. This time, it is to conclude. Mace speaks. He has been doing this more than Yoda since the generator complex, which is its own kind of information. We've reviewed everything, Mace said. The engagement on Tatooine, the council sessions. Naboo, he is working through the list with the systematic care of a man who has prepared his statement and is not going to be moved off it by implication or subtext. What you demonstrated in that corridor is not something our training produces. Not at any level. He pauses. We want to offer you formal induction into the order. Modified pathway. Acknowledgement of your existing training. Direct mentorship under a senior master. Another pause, shorter, under Qui-Gon, specifically if he's willing. Qui-Gon, seated at the edge of the chamber at the council's invitation rather than standing as a supplicant, says nothing. He is watching Anakin with the expression he has been wearing since the generator complex, the one that has stopped trying to solve the problem of what Anakin is, and has moved on to simply observing it. Mace continues. The code would apply in modified form. We're prepared to acknowledge that your relationship to the Force operates outside existing doctrine. What we ask in return is affiliation. Communication, the coordination we discussed. He stops. The offer is complete. The chamber waits. Anakin stands in the center of the circle and takes a breath. I'm not leaving because you're wrong about everything, he said. His voice is even. He has not prepared this speech the way he prepared the tactical arguments and the philosophical demonstrations. This one comes from somewhere below preparation, from the accumulated weight of 2 lifetimes looking at the same mistake from different angles. I'm leaving because you're only right about half of it. And half a truth isn't enough to keep the people I love safe. The chamber holds the words. The code suppresses. It doesn't integrate. It tells a Force sensitive that half of what they feel is dangerous and must be contained, and then it's surprised when that half finds a way out sideways, through fear, through manipulation, through the specific vulnerability of a person who has been told their own nature is a problem. He looks at Mace, because Mace deserves the direct address. I know exactly what that vulnerability produces. I know its name, and I know its face, and I will not build a philosophy on the foundation that created it. Mace does not look away. His jaw is set, but his eyes are doing something honest. The look of a man who has heard an argument he cannot fully answer, and knows it. What you're describing, Ki-Adi-Mundi said carefully, would require an institution. Teachers, a doctrine. Time, yes, Anakin agreed. You're 9 years old. I'm aware. He meets Ki-Adi-Mundi's eyes without heat. The institution will not be built by me alone, and it will not be built tomorrow. But it will be built. And it will be built on the foundation that a being who understands both aggression and serenity, who can draw on the full spectrum of what the Force offers, without being owned by either extreme, achieves a truer mastery than one who has been taught to amputate half of their experience. He pauses. Revan proved it. The blade on my hip proves it. The generator complex on Naboo proved it. Yoda speaks for the first time. Disagree with your conclusions, we do not, he said quietly. Disagree with your method of reaching them, we do not. The ancient eyes are fully open, the full weight of 800 years applied to the problem. Fear, we have. Openly, a doctrine of balance in wrong hands becomes a justification for anything. He tilts his head. Know this, you do. I know it, Anakin said. Which is why the doctrine requires the discipline to precede the freedom. You learn control before you learn access. You earn the balance, it's not assumed. He looks at Yoda. Revan's holocron is explicit on this. The balance is not a starting point, it's a destination. Yoda considers this for a long moment. Then go, he said. And build carefully. Queen Amidala provides the resources. She does it with the straightforward political efficiency that Anakin has come to expect from her. Naboo owes him a debt that she intends to honor in the most useful currency available, which is money, property, and the political goodwill of a planet that just won a war. A site in Naboo's lake country, a structure large enough for the purpose, a legal instrument establishing the new academy as an independent educational institution, outside Jedi jurisdiction, and outside Senate regulatory reach. She presents the documentation in her formal capacity, the Queen's seal on the transfer, and then in a quieter moment afterward says, I hope you'll allow me to visit. As Padam, not as the Queen. Always, he said. She nods, files it, moves on to the next item on her agenda, which is how she moves through everything. Qui-Gon comes to find him the evening before departure. Not in the palace, in the garden at the palace's eastern edge, where the Solu bends and the light at this hour does something with the water that turns the whole garden amber. Anakin is sitting on a stone bench with Revan's hilt in his hands, not meditating, just holding it. The way you hold something that has been with you through a significant passage of time. Qui-Gon sits beside him. Neither of them speaks for a while. You could have stayed, Qui-Gon said finally. The council would have made it work. I know, Anakin replied. But the thing they would have made work is not the thing that needs to exist. He turns the hilt in his hands. The order is not wrong. It's incomplete. Those are different problems requiring different solutions. He looks at Qui-Gon. I'm the solution to the second one. I'm not the correction to the first. That's theirs to find. Qui-Gon is quiet for a moment. I'd like to visit, he said. Periodically, if you'll have me. I'd have you permanently, Anakin said. The offer stands. Qui-Gon smiles, the real one, not the diplomatic version. Let me think about it. He won't think about it long. Anakin knows this. He says nothing. Because it is Qui-Gon's decision to reach in Qui-Gon's time, and because some things are better confirmed by arrival than by promise. They depart at dawn. His mother stands at the transport's boarding ramp in the early light, her travel bag over her shoulder, looking at Naboo's lake country in the middle distance. She has the expression she gets when she is already somewhere in her mind before her body arrives. "What are you thinking?" he asked. "That I've never seen water like that," she said. "That much water in one place." She looks at it a moment longer. "We're going to be all right here. Not a question." Shmi Skywalker does not ask questions she already knows the answer to. "Yes," he said. "We are." He offers her his arm. She takes it. They walk up the boarding ramp together into the transport that will carry them to the lake country, to the site, to the first morning of whatever this is going to be. Revan's blade rests at his hip, violet and ancient and quietly present, the reddish flicker at its edge catching even the ambient light of the transport bay. A dead man's weapon, carried by a man who has already died once and chosen, on the second attempt, to do something different with the time. He knows how the old story ended. He does not know how this one will, for the first time in either of his lives. Standing at the top of a boarding ramp with his mother's hand on his arm, and a dead legend's blade at his hip, and the lake country of Naboo waiting in the morning light below him, that uncertainty feels exactly like what it is. Not a threat. A beginning. Let us know what you'd like to see next. The end.